for Bonnie and Greg Dixon with Storyvan TV, and we're with Chris Powell here. Bonnie, you have an introduction?
Yes, Chris and I met on LinkedIn, and we just hit it off right away. And I just knew I had to interview him as I had found out a little bit more. Now, I have his bio, and I just want to read a little bit from because I was in awe myself. So, Chris, almost 4 decades of experience in government and business. And he's led operations ranging from small teams to large, complex operations and organizations with really diverse challenges. And so he's had quite a cross section across, leadership, strategy development, planning, organizational effectiveness, and team building. And what behind the scenes, I love this. He's an executive coach. He's done speaking, corporate training. This is what we're talking a little bit about today. DISC consultant, and we'll talk about that through the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. He holds not only a Bachelor of Science degree in business and education, 3 master's degrees, including one in life coaching. He offers workshops, seminars, keynote speeches, DISC consultation, and executive coaching. But where I really found him interesting is, he's had some experience in the Navy. Now, he and we touched base on that. The Navy was one of our touch points because my dad was in the Navy. And he's a retired Navy senior chief petty officer. Say that 3 times quick. And a 23-year career in surface and subsurface warfare. Now you think, how would that work with business? But just think of all the organization, all the things that you have to understand about surveillance, intelligence,
and leadership.
And oh my gosh. And he's also a decorated veteran. So we applaud you for that, Chris. We really do. And he received the Navy Achievement Medal for recognition of outstanding achievement while directing the training of several thousand sailors in the Master's Advanced Level Undersea Warfare courses. Oh, there's so much more to say about him. He retired from the Navy, and then he was working for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as the membership director there. Super successful there. And he went on to work in executive coaching, which led to the birth of his Powell Advisory Group. And, Chris, this is really where, when you look at someone's life, he's been married for 45 years to his beautiful wife, Carla. They have 3 children, 5 grandchildren. Oh, by the way, he loves fishing in the outdoors. And from that, what we'd love to do, that is quite the intro there, Chris. We'd love to know, and I believe when we talked the other day, what you teach about something called the DISC method made you just light up with excitement to be able to teach something that can help so many. Would you share with us what the DISC means?
Sure. DISC is DISC. Some people know it as colors. Some people know it as animals. Some people know it as phlegmatic, melancholic, choleric, and sanguine from ancient days. That actually came from pre-Hippocrates' day in ancient Greece, Greek philosophy. And Hippocrates actually refined it, and then it came through the centuries, was used for millennia as far as understanding how people behave, how people's personalities fit and all that. And then in the early, as part of the last century, there were 2 very influential psychologists. One was Carl Jung. He's the one where Myers-Briggs sprung out of. And there was another fellow named Marston, and they were contemporaries. And he's the one that he wrote the Emotions of Normal People, that book. He never really developed DISC himself, but out of that book, DISC sprung. And so now we have modern DISC these days. Interestingly enough, every one of the assessments out there, for the most part, that are empirically proven instruments, they judge off of a standard. In other words, what is normal and then there's a plus or minus, a deviation. DISC is the only one that does not do that. DISC measures strengths. So, if one, and there's nothing wrong with the other instruments. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. The Myers-Briggs is more task-oriented. The DISC is personality-oriented. So imagine this. What if you had an instrument where you could put teams together and you knew for a fact how they operated and who was the best for the job? For instance, DISC stands for D is dominant. We used to have a president of the United States that was a dominant, this last president, kind of a bull in the china closet type person. Then there is the influencer. That is a party person. They walk into a room, they will have everybody as their friend when they leave. They don't pay a whole lot of attention for a long time, but they're really fun to be around. The S is a very steady person. I'm an S, for instance, very steady. And these people are collaborators. They are the oil that makes the machine move, where the D dominant is the visionary, the one that gets things moving, the type A. The S tends to coalesce everything and make everything solid in an organization. And then the C is very cerebral or compliant. As a matter of fact, they didn't see a spreadsheet they didn't fall in love with immediately. So you see a lot of accountants in that. Airline pilots. S's are pretty well full range across the board in all vocations. Most of the population, their primary is an S, 69% in fact. So, and 3% with the D. Isn't that good? Because if you had everybody as a D, we'd have wars all over the place instantly, So the interesting thing with the dominant is they're the visionaries. They get things moving. The S comes in and holds things together. The C is the one that counterbalances the D to make sure that they don't step in it permanently. And the I is the happy person. So, for instance, if a person's putting a sales team together, the best people that you can put on a sales team is a dominant influencing person. Influencing, sales. Dominant, hard charging. Those are your closers. The best people that in accounting would be your C, your compliant. The best people that are the collaborators and team builders and the behind the scenes people are the S's. And so the great salespeople are straight I's as well. So, but the D really adds a lot into that. Did that kind of explain that, or did that get a little too deep?
Oh, no, it's fascinating. I'm just curious. Wouldn't this be a good thing to teach in high schools?
It would be a wonderful thing. Yeah. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because the U.S. Air Force Academy uses exclusively the Maxwell DISC protocols, that Maxwell DISC assessment. Every cadet in the U.S. Air Force Academy goes through the Maxwell DISC. No other DISC, the Maxwell DISC. Microsoft uses the Maxwell DISC exclusively because of how it's designed. It's been vetted by universities. It's been vetted by the U.S. Air Force Academy. It's been empirically proven. It's got, as a matter of fact, I have a technical study. And if you can make sense of that, you are better than I am. Because
now,
really
what
intense.
if a person is not a D, but they aspire to be a D? Can someone change?
Yes, they can. In fact, they can. They can actually modify their behavior. Now, what's interesting is that you have a group of people, very interesting. They're a combination of an S, the solid, steady person, the oil behind the collaborator, who is coupled that in their personality, they're mixed with the C, which is the analytical, and the I, which is the people person. That is called a false D. So, and there's quite a few people in the population like that. Where they come in is say that there's no competent leadership. They will walk right into the leadership role and take over.
And that's probably not a good thing, right?
Well, it's a great thing, because actually they're probably the most competent leaders out there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you say that again, the combination?
SIC. All right. Or it's steady,
Okay.
compliant, like in the DISC, DISC, steady, compliant, influencer. Or it could be an influencer.
Okay.
It could be any of those, that combination. As
Right.
long as it's as long as the intensity, we call it intensity, is above a certain point, then any combination, they can be rated as what's called a false D. They can look like a D, but they fall within parameters. Interesting. The D, dominant type, there are no parameters. They just run into, yeah, they're just a really high dominant type. They just run into, and it doesn't matter who they run over or anything like that. You see these up in, guess where? Washington, D.C. What do you think a good deal of those politicians are? Yeah, a lot of the politicians are like that.
Would you think, Chris, that, let's just say, looking at business-wise, that a person, when we call them an entrepreneur and they're creative and they're that the top of their game in their particular company, that they're generally D's, but they could be the combination.
Yeah.
But would you say that do they change personality too sometimes?
Yeah. So it's interesting. And even though it's called a personality, MDPI, Maxwell Disc Personality Indicator, it's actually based on behavior, not personality.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So anybody can change into anything. Now, how long they can sustain that's another story, because there's natural parts of their makeup that they'll naturally slide back into their what's norm for them over the years. Now, that said, everybody operates as combinations, and everybody operates under the influence of their environment. So let's say when I do these DISC assessments, I'll say, do this as if you're under stress at work. They will show a certain profile. If I say, do this as if you're under stress at home, profile is going to be different. It will be different. Now, what's interesting is the base profile will not change. That's how they work under stress. That's how they were born. But how they operate out in the environment is different. In fact, how they see themselves is different. So the environmentals play a huge role in how they operate and how a person operates. You are not the same where you're at than if you were in an auto accident. You are two different people, in essence. You're going to operate differently.
Yeah.
Or if you're or if you're paying taxes and you're at your tax accountant, you will be a different person.
Very interesting. I have experienced that when a former partner of mine was in. It was a really challenging health situation, and I met a few people, and one of the nurses said to me that this other person was self-actualized, and they were able to overcome the whole experience, and that strength of their personality was shining through. So when I think of the DISC method, do you see that it happen within the different colors or different names?
Right. So self-actualization, that comes from Maslow, by the way.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Maslow. Maslow's theory of hierarchy. And the self-actualization can be, it doesn't matter if one is a dominant D or an I or an S or a C. What does matter is personal growth and development, because that's the only way one will get there. But they have got to go through the personal growth and development. That's why readers are leaders. You ever heard of readers are leaders? So that's slowing a little bit off of DISC, but is it really? Because that's the makeup of the person. For instance, a lot of D's aren't going to read a lot.
Yes.
S's and C's will read. D's and I's will not read. I'll tell you why. D's and I's, dominants and influencers, are extroverts. S's and C's, studies and compliance, are introverts. Interestingly enough, the dominant is an extroverted, task-oriented person. The influencer is a task-oriented, people person.
Interesting.
Yeah, the S is a introverted. Listen to this: introverted people person. Introvert. How does that work? Introverted people person. How does that work? But I'm one of them. They actually get tired. They get drained because they tend to be empathetic. They actually feel empaths. They actually feel emotions from people. And it's not anything ooey gooey or sixth sense. It's just that the mind and the mind of an S takes in the body language and all that, and they can sense the emotions based on that, and they're accurate. Whereas the D doesn't care a bit, and neither does the I, because the I's in for the party. The C,
all eyes on me.
yeah, all eyes on me.
Yeah.
But the C really doesn't care.
Now, when I'm thinking about you working with clients, who comes to you, Chris? Who says, I want to learn more about myself?
Yeah.
Would a D actually come to you?
If their business is in jeopardy, they will. Because they're going to bring me in to build their team, to get a good understanding of where they're at in their business, because they instinctively know if they don't know themselves and how they're operating, it's going to be very difficult. How come none of my people stick around? What's the deal here? Nobody. Now they're just, and these are not the enemy. These are necessary. They are absolutely necessary to get things moving in a society. If everybody relies on ISs and Cs, we'd still be creating fire in the dark ages. These are the ones that are the prime movers. Okay. But say a dominant person is here's a perfect example. You got an HVAC. Oh, you don't know what HVAC is. All right, let's do plumbing. You got a plumbing contractor or a roofing contractor. Okay. They grew or masonry is really good. They grew this business from the ground up. They're hard charging. They grew it to 50, 60 employees. They're now about 65, 70 years old. They don't want to relinquish control, but they know they have to for an exit plan. They know they have to for the survival of their business. Guess who comes in to help them with that? Because now I can come in and help them understand who they are. I can help them build the teams that are going to carry that legacy on through. I can help them create the high performance teams to sustain and stabilize their business indefinitely. And then they will never want to relinquish control. But once they see that all intact, they may start loosening up the reins a little bit. Because if they don't, their business is going to die.
Just as you explained it, I recognized someone that I worked for was phenomenal organization. Of all things, it was a health food store, but she was just such a driver. Actually, just a little tiny store. I called it a little Reno. The store was known across the entire U.S. Because of her influence, because she was such a strong, dominant leader. And I thank you for that example. It really helped me understand her even more just listening to you. And so when I think of you then, Chris, when you reach out, are people looking for you, or they say, I need someone to help me? Or who comes to you? How do they find you?
Referrals.
Okay.
Usually referrals, I mean, I'm an unknown entity. Nobody knows who I am. I mean, we've gone through quite a challenge over the last few years. My wife's disabled, for instance. I'm her caregiver. We lost our second daughter, and that's why we're down here in South Carolina, because our granddaughter just left a few minutes ago to go to college. She's all grown up. Oh. And our grandson is in Clemson. So we've had challenges. So I've been kind of hidden because I couldn't really operate. I'm a very rather emotional person, and I just got stuck. That's why coaching is so important. That's why an
Mhm.
outside source is so important, because that's what brought me through, is that.
Mhm.
And now I'm a
You
grief
had the
sheriff
tools
coach.
in your hand to actually get through it. So what I just heard you say is, if a person gets stuck, if they have the right tools and a right mentor, they can go right through some tragedy, some adversity. Even when people are doing really well, that can be stressful too.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, many times that's the only way they're going to come back in the whole skin, and get up on their feet. Had I not had that, I'm not sure where I'd be right now.
Mhm.
Because it's been, I won't go through all the laundry list that's happened, but we've been through some pretty severe things over the years.
Mhm.
But had I not had somebody come along, a coach, to come alongside me and just be there sometimes,
Mhm.
I would have never gotten back up on my feet and never been successful. I've just closed a corporate deal this morning. I could have never done that 2 years ago.
Mhm. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I know about you in this short amount of time that we've gotten to know you is, you're a man that you've got a lot of things going on, but you're able to handle it because you have tools in your hip pocket.
Yeah.
And not only do you have the tools, but you help teach the tools
Yes.
for people who have a business or maybe have just a lot going on in their life and they're struggling to figure it all out. It
Yeah.
sounds like that's one of the things that you can do, is coach them through that
Yeah.
by observing and seeing what their needs are that
Yeah.
they might not even know.
Yeah. In fact, blind spots, you ever heard of the Johari window? The
Yeah.
Johari window is huge. So if anybody looking at this doesn't know what that is, go look it up on Wikipedia. It is huge. There's 4 panes. Okay.
Mhm.
The one pane, I know me and you know me. It's like what we're seeing right here on the video. There's
Mhm.
another pane in that, which is I know me, but you don't know that part of me, and you never ever will. And
Mhm.
then there's a part of me that you know me, and I don't know something about me. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. I was walking down the street in Newport News, and I was with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce at that time. And this guy was coming towards me, and he had this big green thing, ugh, ugh, dripping out of his nose. He was walking right at me. Now, he looked a little spooky all by himself. And I'm thinking, Johari window, and I let him go on by because I wasn't going to address it. But that was something he did not know, but I definitely did know. And then there's the blind spot, and that's where the coach and the corporate trainer comes in. I know I don't know, and you don't know either, and that's what kills business. But that's also where the subconscious lies. That's also where the greatest growth lies, the highest potential. Isn't that interesting?
That is absolutely fascinating. Um, I know Greg and I only met 6 years ago. And when we met in our 60s, we said that we're in our 60s and we want to know what we're going to do when we grow up. And,
Yeah.
and the thing is, sometimes we have each other to bounce things off of, but not everyone does. And
No.
to have someone to bounce ideas off, to say, am I on the right track?
Yeah.
What the hell am I doing?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the one goal that I have is not to stay in a company or anything for the rest of my life. I'm not a psychologist, even though I
Mhm.
have a pastoral counseling master's. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a therapist. I am a coach. And what
Mhm.
coaches do is they come in, they help people. You ever heard of gap analysis or SWOT and all that? The person's here, where are they trying to get? So we get them
Yeah.
there. But in a company, my goal is to actually train the leadership on how to coach.
Right.
Oh, so they can forward that. And I will tell you, in a company of some sort, if the C-suite or the owners or whoever that is does not take hold of it, nobody else is. I can train all, and I will not waste. Hey, folks, don't try and get me to solve your problems at the lower levels. I'm not going to do it unless the C-suite, the owners, are on board and they're following the program too, because it won't work. And
Yeah.
it's a waste of money and a waste of time and very frustrating.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that where organization has changed from the top down, right? And not for the better. It's just the company that people were working on ceases to exist, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I've seen that as well a lot of times. It kind of breaks your heart for companies sometimes.
Yeah. But, I'm not one that's just going to go out there and get contracts to get contracts. I'm going to go out there and make an effect and have something stick. And it will be impossible unless now that doesn't mean the CEO of Boeing Aircraft got to be involved, but as executive vice president of a branch that silo does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that size company is kind of who you enjoy working with.
That one's a little big for me. I have to bring in all sorts of different assets for something like that, like Lean Six Sigma people, HR people, if it's that. No, mine, I like to be more in the 20 to 400 employee, privately owned realm, kind of small to mid companies that have potential to grow, that really needs somebody to come in as an objective ear. That's not too close to the situation. I almost said mess, but it's not always a mess. Most of the time, it's just a little refinement. It's a little tweak. Most of the time. Sometimes there's just no leadership, no real leadership. There's a lot of management, but no leadership. There's a way big difference between management and leadership. So I'm in there helping the company move forward and creating these high performance teams that are always on. As a matter of fact, you ever heard of forming, storming, norming, and performing?
I haven't. Have you?
Okay. That is a group dynamic that's from Tubman. It's industrial psychology, just like the Johari Windows industrial psychology. And that's how the NFL forms their teams. And so does every other sports. And that's how the U.S. military does it too. Forming, storming, norming, and performing. So as a group comes together, they form, and then there's a storming side, and it's always there. Okay. And that storming, there's a little bit of rebellion towards authority, or they're trying to figure out the pecking order, or they're beating each other up, and that can last for years. Gossip, and people are backbiting and backstabbing. That's storming. And then there's there is the norming, where they actually start talking to each other and they start collaborating and they start helping each other out. And then there's the performing. Everybody's on the same sheet of music. Everybody's going forward as one force. It doesn't matter what the rank of somebody is. Everybody's in it to win, it. That's a performing team.
Wow. That is interesting. Question on that. Can they be in that performing, and then with the players changing, then it goes back and forth,
yes,
up and down that whole?
Yeah, it does. As a matter of fact, when a player leaves, that whole cycle starts again. It may not endure as long as a brand new set of people. If somebody's brand new that comes in, it starts all over again. And that storming may be very short, or it can last for years. And that's where some businesses are. And they think that's normal, and it is not normal.
I have felt that even in smaller, it was a restaurant when I was just I was going to college and I worked in a restaurant. And I'm telling you, what you just shared right now was so spot on. It was all bumpy, bumpy, bumpy. And then it started, I called it humming. It was humming. It was so fabulous.
Yeah.
And then the manager left.
Yeah. And then it fell apart.
It fell apart.
Yeah.
So one, I think, related example is when the Las Vegas Golden Knights entered the NHL, and they formed and stormed and went through that very quickly to end up to the Stanley Cup final, which put a few people's noses out of joint. There's quite a few teams have never really made it there, hardly. The Canucks have been defeated 3 times now, but there was that shooting in Las Vegas that I think really galvanized the city and the team, and that just took them to another level, gave them a purpose for that year, really.
Well, the leaders, there's some things that a leader's task is. One of them is communication. One of them is morale. One of them is the facilitation of that process of team group dynamics. Because there's a fifth part of that: forming, storming, norming, and performing, and that's a journey. That's where your Christmas parties are. That's where a team disbands. That's where probably the best example I can think of anywhere is special forces, especially the SEALs. Okay. Well, not to put any other special forces down, folks. Okay. But little rivalry there. But, but the SEALs, for instance, I mean, if you ever watched, what was that movie about the SEALs then that got ambushed? I forget the name of it, but that teamwork and all that, that is a performing team. Okay. And then, well, as a matter of fact, did you see Top Gun, this last one?
Not yet. It's on our list.
All right. So that you can actually see this dynamic in that film. It is glaring. So they come together, they're not operating, and they're beating each other up. That's the storming part. They're forming, storming, and then they are not performing at all. And Tom Cruise takes them out to play football. And the admiral comes around and says, "What are you doing? You got this mission going on." He says, "I'm training the team for that mission." And that's where the glue came together in that football game. And then they started norming, and then they performed. It is glaring.
That is a great example. Well, I am just so thrilled that we were able to just pick a little tiny bit of your brain of what you do, because you have a vast amount of knowledge and ability to give and to share and to contribute and to make. Lately, it's my whole philosophy is, make lives better, and to really, at this day and age, so much information is coming in that feels negative. But what I'm hearing you say is that things can get better, and they can really do well when they have the right tools. And I encourage anyone that's listening to this interview that if you're in that right parameter, reach out to Chris, and even reach out to him if you're smaller, because he may know someone that can help you with what you're going through, because we all want to do well. I know that humans want to do well, and we appreciate you, Chris, for coming on today and clarifying a little bit about what DISC is, and sharing with us, what can happen when all the tools are there, how our lives will be better.
Absolutely. Now, may I say one thing? Is a good start is read John Maxwell books. It's all laid out there. I'm part of the Maxwell. If you've never heard John Maxwell, look him up on Wikipedia.
And then we want to make sure that people, can they find some of that on your website?
They can. As a matter of fact,
so go to Chris's website here. I'll let you share a little bit about that.
It's under products. If you go to products, you click on products, it's underneath there.
One second, we'll get back over to where we were. There we go.
Yeah, you just go to products, click on that. You can order all the things that you could possibly want. You can book me here. It's got all my information. You get free gifts. You see that art of balancing and candor.
I'm all over that one.
Free gift. There's another free gift in there. So there's all sorts of stuff. So.
Well, this is very. Do you have any workshops coming up, Chris?
I do for exclusively. Well, actually, I do Change Your Worlds a lot. Change Your World. I cannot charge for that. That is gifted to us by the Maxwell Leadership Foundation. It's all values based. So the first value is. The first value is hope. The second one's, isn't that what we need, is some hope? The second one's the second one's listening. Wouldn't that be good? The third one is valuing other people. The fourth one is integrity. The fifth one is forgiveness. And the last one's multiplication. So I start these on a regular basis. If you're interested, please let me know. I do them all on Zoom. It is 6 weeks, 1 hour a week for 6 weeks. It is extreme. I've watched, they're called transformation tables, and there's a reason why they are, because you can watch people shift, especially on the forgiveness lessons. So I can't charge for it, but it's a very good way for us to get introduced and get to know each other.
That sounds great.
That's fabulous. That's really exciting. And we want to just thank you today for coming and to Storyvan TV. And again, Chris Powell, we thank you. And we look forward to connecting again, because we have more things to talk about.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we always do.
Well,
right.
thanks again.
Thank you.